A 15-man committee announced by the Speaker Abbas Tajuddin has the mandate of the House of Representatives to investigate allegations of terrorism funding in Nigeria. The committee is to meet with heads of security agencies and non-governmental groups to ascertain the veracity of the U.S. Congressman's allegation. The recent allegation by U.S. Congressman Scott Perry is still generating concerns in Nigeria. The lawmaker made mind-boggling claims alleging that the U.S. agency funds have been misused to support terrorist organizations. The Nigerian government is not taking the allegations lightly. Likewise, the Senate. Now let's bring in Professor of Peace and Conflict Studies in the University of Ilorin, Agbemissola Animashaun, for more on this development. Prof, thanks for joining us on the news tonight. The U.S. ambassador to Nigeria has denied this allegation. He says the U.S. stands with Nigeria in its fight against terrorism. How do you think this incident will affect U.S.-Nigeria relations, especially in terms of counterterrorism cooperation?
Thank you very much. Straight to your question, it will not adversely affect our diplomatic relations because diplomacy is in the realm of statecraft, and the frontline actor in this regard is the ambassador. And he has come out clearly to say that there's nothing like that. So for me, I don't see it straining our diplomatic relations with the United States, especially given the history of affinity and cooperation and mutual benefit of the diplomatic relations between the two countries. In diplomacy, we have what we call back channels. So I believe, even if, assuming the worst even happens, I believe this can be handled through the back channels. And I think a direction has been given based on the comment of the ambassador by saying there's nothing like that. And don't forget, the United States has been consistent in supporting Nigeria's war against terrorism. They've supported investigation, they've supported humanitarian, in the area of humanitarian support, and they've been there for us as partners in our war against terrorism. So I want to believe that the comment by the congressman should not be taken too seriously, without due respect to him, because don't forget, the United States, the internal politics in the United States at this point in time is a peculiar one. It is not in a way that is characteristic with what we've known of statecraft in the United States. And I believe that given the history of the two countries, I'm not sure this is not enough to put a strain on our diplomatic relations with the U.S.
But many Nigerians remain curious, especially when such allegation is coming from, an elected U.S. official. The 15-man committee.
And a former cop, too.
Absolutely. There's a 15-man committee now tasked by the House of Reps to look into these allegations. I'm wondering what you think should be the key steps they should take to ensure a thorough investigation.
Thank you very much. I think this should be the basis of launching a wider investigation beyond what the congressman said into all the ramifications of terrorist financing in Nigeria. And when we are talking about the terrorist financing in Nigeria, we should not limit ourselves to Boko Haram alone. How about the financing of IPOB, for instance? So, this is a very timely opportunity for us as a country and for the legislature in particular to do, a very broad and robust investigation into the financing of all forms of terrorism and banditry actually in Nigeria.
Regardless of the outcome of this investigation, do you think there are strategies Nigeria can begin to adopt to prevent the misuse of funds and ensure that whatever aid we are getting reaches its intended beneficiaries rather than terrorist organizations?
Thank you very much. We have an existing law governing the operations of the non-profit sector in Nigeria. So I think, first of all, it's important to maybe review the law in the light of what is happening, especially given the role of crowdfunding and online funding, and how they can access terrorism today. Maybe we may need to rejig that law to be at par, to be abreast of what is happening in terms of covert means of funding terrorism. But in ensuring that funds get to their intended recipients, it is important for us to strengthen our financial controls and oversight functions. We should, and I think in this regard, the legislature should work as well with academics in conducting due diligence on donors and partners who come or who are coming to operate in the country. Then we should have a clear policy on what and how we want to accept, support from anywhere. And in doing this should also be applicable to state government, not only to federal government agencies, because some donors will just pick a particular local government or a particular state. So it's important for us to have a holistic approach to this and bring on board, maybe through the Governors Forum, Algon, and the federal government. Then we need to put in place continuous training, especially for personnel of the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and all other relevant agencies in the area of being able to detect potential and questionable sources of funding into the country. And we should also have a very robust institutional mechanism for monitoring the performance and operations of players within the third sector or the not-for-profit sector.
It's a good place to leave it. I say that you have a robust idea to share in this regard. We'll probably continue this conversation subsequently. Professor of Peace and Conflict Studies, University of Ilorin, Professor Gbemisola Adebashaun, thank you so much for talking to us tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.